bringing you the show today. On Friday, we've got some really interesting information. Again, links that you can use to help spread the word, help people understand quickly what is really going on and what we're facing, and then some good tools and lessons and a vision for the future, because we got to fight, but we have to move forward. So we have to try to stop actions, but we have to try to go forward and sell the vision, because as we, just like David Cobb said yesterday, as we grasp that vision and share it and talk about it and build excitement for it, we'll change the game. That's the game changer. So we're going to talk about and some age-old truths. It's the love of money that is the root of all evil, and you see it everywhere. And I want to point out that the whole problem, remember I said yesterday, if you had one wish to fix something, what are we fighting for? What is that vision? What would you pick? And I've been thinking about it, and I think at this point that I would pick the, actually I wrote it down here. Where did I write it? Oh, there we are. The credit creation for public benefit only. It's all about the money. If we only created the credit, the liquidity that our society needs so that we can, do the trading of goods and services. If all of that credit creation was any gain in it, like interest payments, that kind of thing, was for the public benefit, we would all benefit. That's my vision. That's my great transformation. So how are we going to get there? So this is how we're going to get there. And so first, we're going to look at the economic hitmen, because people need to understand this is what we're fighting. They need to see the vision. It's put together so well on a little video I'm going to play for you. And then we're going to always be thinking, always think, when there's something horrible, oh, this is awful, it's an opportunity. So when we see a crisis, let's think about what the opportunity is in it. That helps us do a couple of things. Not get too depressed. And two, look at the future. Figure out the vision. See what we need. Start selling the solutions, and we will get people to follow us. Most people don't want to hear negative news. They really don't. I mean, I talk about it because we have to know what we're dealing with. This is education. But we must sell to ourselves and to others the positive move forward. That is going to unite activists. It's going to sell the vision. It's going to get people on our side. They're going to start such a loud conversation about this that the other game will go into the background. So, first, let's really hear about economic hitmen. This is a plan. And remember, I want to make one more thing. Free money for some is tyranny for all. This is why we face tyranny almost everywhere we look. Why? Because those private individuals that have snagged the privilege of creating money out of nothing gives them the advantage. It's a no-brainer. Just think about it. Like I say to people, okay, if you had the opportunity to just decide, okay, I'm going to put $1 trillion in my bank account. Now I have $1 trillion. And everybody agreed with that, you'd be king of the mountain, right? That's what we're facing. They have snagged that privilege of creating free money. So now we, in response, get tyranny. So we have to take that free money privilege back out of their greedy hands and put it back into the hands of the people in a public and transparent way. That's the vision for the future. Okay, let's hear exactly what these free money tyrannists are doing. This is how it works.
My name's Daniel Bushell. The chickens come home to roost for America's global debt heist coming up.
Washington makes states take Wall Street's kiss of death. Presidents assassinated. How nations fall in the tequila trap.
When capitalist convert Russia turned to Washington for help, the White House met to decide the worst possible advice.
We have to smash them into the ground. We want to feed them bad economic advice so they will fall apart. Shock therapy.
They decided the worst was ready to go in the IMF Wall Street method. Destruction of the nation's industry overnight, pensions and savings wiped out. The IMF demands speculators are let in. Wall Street duly starts joint raids, gutting the stock market and national currency. Congress was informed it worked like a dream.
The IMF has presided over a catastrophe worse than our own Great Depression. Russia opened itself to dependence on money it had been creating itself before the wolf got in the door in IMF shock therapy.
The worst hyperinflation in history hit Yugoslavia when the IMF demanded bankrupting 1,000 companies, destroying social programs and forcing regions to literally fight for survival. Violent protests known as IMF riots are even factored into the austerity package. Author and Balkan specialist Nebojša Malic, thanks a lot for joining us. Our country is literally destroyed by Wall Street and IMF.
It was definitely an assisted suicide. I maintain it's a suicide. Some people are more inclined to say it was murder, but it was definitely assisted from the outside. What we're seeing with the IMF and the World Bank and all these international financial advisors and experts is that they're not really interested in the country itself surviving or being tenable. All they're interested is in extracting as much wealth out of it as possible.
This is how they do it.
One of my jobs as an economic hitman was to identify countries with resources like oil and arrange huge loans to benefit a few very wealthy families. The people would be left holding this huge debt they couldn't repay. The IMF comes in, we'll help you restructure your loan, but you have to sell your coveted resource.
Most of the world's nations have been caught in a form of Mexico's triple stripping, known as the tequila trap. Lured by promises of more investment, first the floodgates were opened to Wall Street speculators. In just 20 days, Goldman Sachs and Co. suddenly and mysteriously disappeared over $4 billion from the country. The previously strong peso and Mexican stock market then collapsed, letting Wall Street cherry-pick assets on the cheap. And when Mexico ran out of money to pay back Wall Street debts, Goldman chief squid Robert Rubin stepped in. He moved to US Treasury Sec and the same day signed a massive bailout by US taxpayers of Mexico, but the money went straight to US banks. Triple stripping tequila trip mission accomplished. While Mexico's nursed a recession hangover for over a decade, Wall Street literally cracks open the bubbly.
There was a big party at Morgan Stanley after the peso devaluation. People from all over Wall Street came. They drank champagne and smoked cigars and congratulated themselves. These people are pirates, international pirates.
Top Mexican economists taken their own figures to show Washington's globalization campaign is a sham. This shock graph shows any gains from international trade eat up internal commerce within a country, leaving no net gains, just huge disruption to communities. The author of that report joins us, Dr. Carlos Encinas. What did you find?
I found that, in effect, international trades benefited only a tiny group of the super rich. Globalization's been great for them, not for the world. The rest of us pay twice. First for more imports, then high interest on the loans to afford them.
The Federal Reserve is not actually federal. It's a private corporation owned by a consortium of Wall Street banks. They pay the Fed's economists like Ben Bernanke to come up with the hogwash that gets people to try the tequila trap. Bernanke claims globalization, opening up to international speculators, boosts the nation's GDP an impressive 10%. Then someone actually looked at his figures. The benefits are actually just 0.1%. And that's only after 8 years of ideal trade conditions that exist just in theory, such as total absence of corruption.
One of the most widely cited factoids in defense of free trade is rubbish. Financial globalization has not generated increased investment or higher growth. The countries that have grown most rapidly rely least on capital inflows.
Rapid growth countries like Ecuador get vicious pressure from Washington for steering clear of Wall Street. Programs like USAID are scrapped, and presidents are assassinated. In Confessions of an Economic Hitman, former IMF exec John Perkins writes, when the fund fails to get its way, the CIA sanctions the murder of the country's leader. It's accompanied by outright lies from corporate media, so the public never finds out. Ellen Brown's considered one of the most outstanding thinkers in economics. Her book, Web of Debt, rips Wall Street's global fraud apart. Thanks so much for coming on. What really happens in countries that avoid Wall Street?
Ecuador has been a brilliant success, and even when they try to say negative things about it, there's just not much you can criticize. What they've done, for example, they actually have nationalized the oil. And they're using those oil revenues they use to back their central banks. So they're actually backing development with their own oil company. I mean, imagine if they would allow the U.S. government to actually go into business of different sorts. The government might actually have some money. They told the Argentinians that it would be a disaster. It worked brilliantly well. They told the Ecuadorians and in Iceland, they tried to scare them into going with the program, and they defied the big banks, and it worked out much better for them than for the countries that have gone along. I mean, look at Greece. It hasn't helped them at all to go along.
The Greek tragedy's coming to America. Wall Street gave more than anyone else to Obama's re-election campaign. He's now agreed to bring austerity to the US, as the Goldman boss requests.
You're going to have to undoubtedly do something to lower people's expectations, the entitlements, and what people think that they're going to get, because they're not going to get it.
Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
Some things, and you could go back and you can look at the history of these things, and Social Security wasn't devised to be a system that supported you. The retirement age has to be changed, maybe some of the benefits have to be affected. Entitlements have to be slowed down and contained.
Neoliberalism isn't even in the interests of America. Millions of US jobs are being shipped abroad, 500,000 each year to China alone, in the name of globalization. Author and former Wall Street banker Eve Smith, thanks very much for coming on. Does what they're doing make any sense?
There are entire industries the United States has ceded, one of the big examples being furniture. There was no compelling economic reason to have furniture made in China. The wood is here. The wood is a significant material cost. Shipping it to and from is a considerable expense. The labor here is more than adequate to it's not as if the labor cost is such a big component that it made sense to ship it overseas. What's really going on is that you've got a transfer from lower level factory workers to middle management and senior workers. Because even when you offshore and you do save the factory labor costs, you introduce a lot more coordination costs, right? You need more managers to handle all the coordination of having offshored this, and those managers are more expensive. So a lot of the cost savings are offset by the fact that middle and senior managers make more money. This is classic class warfare.
Class warfare now so severe, says Nobel Prize winner Joseph Stiglitz. He notes America is no longer the land of opportunity. Former Wall Street regulator Bill Black, thanks a lot for joining us. Stiglitz adds even developing countries now offer more chances of personal success than the US, but presumably people can only believe what mainstream economists and media tell them.
President Correa, for example, in Ecuador, who after all is a PhD economist, has had a remarkable success and is treated in both the United Kingdom and the U.S. media as if he's a crazy person. We're talking about the New York Times as well. This is not the hardest right paper, but it shows that even the supposedly liberal organs in the United States on these sort of core theoclassical issues, they tend to be badly infected by bad economics.
Yeah, where will this all end?
Well, it will end in catastrophic economic failure and defeat of democracy, but that won't necessarily be where it stops. As I said, Latin Americans got fed up being used as a test bed for austerity, and you can see from the elected national leaders there that they elected leader after leader who came to power on the express basis: vote for me, I will stop the Washington consensus from being inflicted on the nation.
The looting of America has been among the easiest. A uniquely passive population stood by and watched their homes, savings, jobs robbed red-handed. A networked crackdown coordinated between FBI, DHS, the police, regional fusion centres, city mayors, private sector mercenaries and the banks themselves against the Occupy movement. Canister missiles to skulls, people cuffed so hard they bleed and left till they soil or wet themselves in the interests of the banks against the vast majority suggests any US fightback on Wall Street will be one of the hardest. This is The Truth Seeker.
I'll tell you, one of the phrases that really struck me is the uniquely passive population in this country. And I think it's uniquely passive because we've been frogs in the pot. We really have been buying into, over the past decades, the mainstream media of that, we're the best, we have freedom, this is what democracy looks like. And it's just been hijacked. And now we're waking up. We need to stop being uniquely passive, for absolute sure. For your homework this weekend, here is the link. Then you can watch the Confessions of an Economic Hitman. This is like an hour long from Democracy Now! And how the U.S. uses globalization. I just hate to see that because it is not really you and me, but we are citizens here. We're Americans. But we must take charge and take control. So we're going to talk about some of the tools and lessons and things that we can do and the vision that we're going to be starting to really grasp and share. But first, I wanted to just quickly, a few highlights. I have to talk about the MERS ruling. This is in Oregon. The Supreme Court clears the way for out-of-court foreclosures to proceed, and this is basically a 50-50 kind of a ruling. They didn't say that MERS was outlawed. They basically said that they don't have to record the assignments to make it legal, so they can now go start doing foreclosures out of court rather than being what we've sort of referred to as a judicial state where the foreclosure has to start in court. It's a pro and a con, and I didn't want to focus really on the MERS rulings because in most states right now, MERS is being deemed by the courts as legal. The issue is the people don't control the courts anymore either. So it's just an indication of the institutions that we have to get back, that we have to gain. And we will gain them back the easiest by enveloping our family, friends, and neighbors in the vision for the future. Because the vision for the future, when the money creation is for the benefit of the people, so that there's no one class of people or person that gets all the benefit of creating the money so they can buy everybody off, then you're not going to have so much buying people off, right? So this is, you see how it all flows from the money. That's why I say it's all about the money. Because if we get back the credit creation for the public benefit, then the banksters won't have all the money on the planet anymore. They won't be able to buy off the corporations and the government. So one thing leads to another. I did want to point out, here's a recent, this was like yesterday, whether weapons have existed for over 15 years, and they start talking here about HARP. And now you're already ahead of the game because we did HARP yesterday. I showed you the actual website of HARP, plus the experiment, so that you can understand that. Please share that, because these are weather weapons, the whole point. And the government is not going to admit that this is what they're doing, but this is what they're doing. And we need to expand that and expound that so that people understand that what we're facing is really planetary problems. And of course, you open the paper now almost every day, and we're reading in the Midwest how they're having these horrific tornadoes and these storms, and it's just outrageous, and huge hailstones. And I remind you, if you are in an area where you get a huge hailstone, try to rescue some, stick them in the freezer, and then cut them, because my understanding, the way it's been explained, is that you can see the layers because it's the chemtrails and these, no doubt, these HARP machines that are keeping these particles, instead of landing, that's why we have drought. So they're not landing, they're cycling back up and they're getting cold again. And so they're building bigger and bigger hailstones. It becomes a weapon. So I'd love to have some proof of that. If that happens, take pictures. Come on, let's document this. Now, remember I talked about crisis as opportunity? So we've heard all about the surveillance. In fact, I got a really funny little letter in the email yesterday. It's really, it's a fake letter to Verizon customers. I'm a Verizon customer, by the way, so maybe you don't want to call me on my cell phone. Dear Verizon customers, yesterday it came to light that the NSA has been collecting millions of phone records from you each and every day. To save my time and yours, here are some answers of 3 frequently asked questions. 1, people are asking, will I be charged extra for this service? And the answer, I'm happy to say, is no. While the harvesting and surveillance of your domestic phone calls were not a part of your original Verizon service contract, the NSA is providing this service entirely free of charge. 2, if I add a phone to my account, will those calls also be monitored? Once again, the answer is good news. If you want to add a child or any other family member to your Verizon account, their phone calls will be surveilled and collected and monitored by the U.S. government at no additional cost. And number 3, can the NSA help me understand my Verizon bill? And unfortunately, the answer is no. I just had to share that because it shows the American resilience, and we need to bring in that humor because it's completely outrageous. What's really shocking to me is to listen to some of the talking heads on both conservative and liberal mainstream media, and they haven't gotten the idea yet. They still think that this surveillance is about terrorism. And that's really shocked me because I have done enough research now, and I'm sharing with you, and you're also probably on the same board, and that is, come on, if the CIA would stop, fomenting terrorism, we wouldn't have it. So this is not about terrorism. Surveillance is not about terrorism. It reminds me specifically that it's about what that KGB guy said on his little interview in 1985, which I showed last week or earlier this week, and that is, when they come to take over the village, they already know who's against them, and they can just eliminate them just like that because they already have all the data they need. That's what I think of when I see this surveillance. They're surveilling to know, whose side are you on? Are you a talking head? Can you be easily manipulated? Or are you fighting back? So we want to get rid of you. Now, crisis opportunity. So here's a surveillance. So here is an article posted just the day before on June 5, 2013 about a time cloak. This is how you can secure your data transmission, and this is an inexpensive way. This is an article about it. They're using easy to get equipment. I swear, so here's the opportunity. Not only is this possible, I suspect they will soon be selling little kits for all the Verizon owners like me, and I'll pay, something that will cloak all my calls. They won't be able to surveil. It's fascinating, isn't it? So here's the point. There's a lot of things going on, and these we can I don't want to spend any more time focusing on that. I want to start talking about the vision and the great transformation and some of the lessons. And this is a 45-minute talk. I'm not going to play it all. But that's your homework. This is a link that when it's in the comments, it'll be after the show. You need to watch this, please, because it's about the Sheriff's Constitutional Convention, and this is one of the speakers on the Constitution. And you'll note here that this is the first one. You see it right up here on the screen? It says 1 of 21. And so these kinds of grouped YouTube videos You see, here's the first one, and then Richard Mack, and I have not had time to listen to them. I'm just going to get you started. I'm going to put this link in the comments. This is our homework for the weekend, because this is the sheriffs of our country that are standing up for the people, for righteousness, for justice, to stop federal tyranny and other state tyranny. Several of these sheriffs are suing Colorado for unconstitutional and tyrannical gun laws, gun control laws. So I just wanted to play the first few minutes because it's really vital that you recognize what I recognize in myself, and that is how ignorant we really are. We don't have to be any longer. These people are up there teaching us this stuff.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am so thrilled to see this large of an audience. I'm very excited to be here. I want to thank Sheriff Mack for allowing me to participate in this historic event, and I want to thank all of you for being here to help make this happen. Sheriff Mack and I have been speaking at the same Patriot rallies for many, many years, and we've actually worked together kind of co-teaching on this because our message is very much the same. Most of what you think you know about the Constitution and about our government is wrong. The reason they asked me to speak first was to kind of rattle your cage a little bit, to be a little bit provocative and possibly even controversial. Most of us think that we know the Constitution. I will frequently give presentations and ask the audience to raise their hand if they are good, patriotic Americans. Not surprisingly, everybody in the audience raises their hand. Next question is, please raise your hand if you can tell me how many articles are in the Constitution. And sadly, very, very few people are able to do that. So let me just give you a kind of a brief introduction. When I ask people when the Declaration of Independence was signed, the most common answer that I get is 4th of July, 1776. Well, if you've been to any subcommittee meetings, they always, get together and vote on the proposition. Thomas Jefferson wrote a version of the Declaration of Independence that was 1,000 words longer than the version that you're familiar with. He brought that draft version back to the subcommittee, and after several days of modifying and deleting and making changes to that document, they created the document that you and I now know as the Declaration of Independence. But it was in draft form, and they had to send that form, that draft, to a printer named Dunlop. Mr. Dunlop made 200 copies of the Declaration of Independence in typeset, basically looked like a newspaper. Eventually, they used one of those versions to create a calligraphy version of the Declaration of Independence that we all think we know and love. And eventually, the Founding Fathers got together on August 2nd to start signing that document. Now, anybody who's older than second grade thinks that they know how to answer this question: who was the first president of the United States? If your answer is George Washington, then you have omitted 13 years of our history. We may not agree on which day in 1776 the Declaration was signed, but we do agree that it was 1776. If you have studied your history at all, you know that George Washington was elected to the White House in 1789, 13 years after the Declaration of Independence. How many people have heard of the Articles of Confederation? You've at least heard about it. That was the first constitution for our country, and under the Articles of Confederation, we elected a new chief executive, a new president of the United States every single year. So the first president of the United States was Samuel Huntington. There were 9 other presidents of the United States prior to George Washington.
Wow. Come on, guys, let's learn the history as it really was so that we can get rid of the preconceived notions and myths that we've been believing. This is truly the foundation of a great transformation. So I'm going to stop right there because we need to move on. But this is truly a class that we can each take at our own speed over time. Bookmark this link when you get it. There's all of these videos that we can absorb so that we can get on the same page as the sheriffs that want to preserve our Constitution. And then let's push our sheriffs. I'm pretty sure my sheriff didn't go. Did your sheriff go? If not, let's find out if they went. And if not, let's find out why. And then let's encourage them to go. Let's share the vision with our sheriffs. Because I do believe that that is one of the probably last bastions of constitutional protection that we, the people, are going to have in this country. So I wanted to talk about that, and then I also wanted to share with you something that I just recently got. This is more homework for the weekend, and this is the common law grand jury. This is a decision. I have not had time to read this. People that have shared this with me are trying to read this and look through this and figure out how we can actually put this together. But this is the common law grand jury decision upon which that is based. And I'd just like to read the first couple of paragraphs, and then I'm going to, the next link talks about how a common law grand jury would be set up. In other words, you and I don't have to wait for the Attorney General to set up a statewide grand jury. So let's mull that one over, and let's think about how we might be able to really institute this and maybe use it as an activism connection to all the other activists. Because I tell you, we're all pissed. We're all upset. Different issues that happen to have affected our lives. That's how everybody is awakened. Something has come in and going, whoa, GMOs, whoa, oh, chemtrails, oh, foreclosures, oh. So let's consider using these tools as connecting links. So this is the point. We, the people, have been providentially provided legal recourse to address the criminal conduct of persons themselves entrusted to dispense justice. Does that sound familiar? Sounds like we really need this. In the Supreme Court case of United States v. Williams, Justice Antonin Scalia, writing for the majority, confirmed that the American grand jury is neither part of the judicial, executive, nor legislative branches of government, but instead belongs to the people. It is in effect a fourth branch of government, governed and administered to directly by and on behalf of the American people, and its authority emanates from the Bill of Rights. Thus, citizens have the unbridled right to impanel their own grand juries and present true bills of indictment to a court, which is then required to commence a criminal proceeding. Our founding fathers presciently, I think that's how you say the word, sorry if I mispronounced it, thereby created a buffer the people may rely upon for justice when public officials, including justices and judges, criminally violate the law. So please, I know there's a lot of you guys are really heavy-duty researchers, have time. Let's read this, let's understand it, tell me how to proceed. Come on, guys, I need your help. Let's figure this out. Let's make this happen. If this is really true, then let's use it. So here's the instructions to create a common law grand jury, how it's constituted, the qualifications, the election procedure, the quorum, finality of decisions, a jurisdiction, what's possible, procedures, limitation of powers, public support, This goes on and on and on, as you can tell, 16 pages worth, including these are the citations. So this is definitely excellent homework for this weekend, and let's start to address these as people. If one of you really wants to take this on and bring this information to us on the live stream, please do so. Let me know. Collect this information, do this research. Let's start brainstorming this as a significant tool. It should do a couple of things. Assuming that we could actually do this and impanel a jury and get a court to start a criminal proceeding, it should be media news. Definitely, this is press release time. And almost regardless of whether we get an indictment or anything, at least it's news. And part of the news is that we could impanel grand juries on probably a variety of topics, right? It doesn't say it's limited on specific topics or issues. So let's mull over how can this opportunity be used in this time of crisis, and how can we best use it? Help me think through that. Think about it yourself right as we're talking about it. Remember, the idea is to connect with others. See, these are the tools and the visions. We can, the letters, I haven't shown you yet, but I'm going to show you the letters in a minute. That maybe we can use this grand jury as a tool to connect with other people wanting their own grand juries for their own indictments. Here's a question, I'm assuming, maybe not, but maybe it would make sense to have several grand juries impaneled, one for each issue. I don't know. One for GMOs and one for fraudulent foreclosures and one for chemtrails and one for weather manipulation and harp damage, and let's think about it. I'm just thinking out loud. We're in this formation, this great transformation discussion together. I do believe that the people need to gain political power, and so I have not even yet had a chance to look at the Green Party. I know that David was really a proponent of that. He talked about the four major things that they are that they support. I think they sounded great. I've already met and had on live stream other Green Party members that have run for office. But let's consider how we're going to get political power, because we do need to gain that power. But in the process of gaining that power and not being corrupted by free money from banksters that make it for free, we need to establish beneficial banks. We need to focus on making sure that the vision leads to the credit creation for public benefit only. Because when creating the credit, which is required for liquidity in our economy, and there's nothing wrong with it being digital, and there's nothing wrong with having printed dollars and coins. Those are just representations of people's time and effort. Now, when the representations, the digital amounts, the dollars, the coins, do not represent people's time and effort, they're just created out of nothing for someone else's benefit. That's the wrong part. That's the part that brings tyranny, that just gets massive, out of control. And so we need to understand, try to separate. It's not that banking is wrong. It's the misuse of the credit creation for private benefit that's empowering tyranny. So the fractional reserve banking system is actually a fabulous way to go. And there's other ways that beneficial banks can be established. I'm going to focus my homework, if you guys can help work on some of these tools, send the letters, connect with other activists, research common law. I'm going to research the beneficial banking, because it turns out that there's many, many different ways that these banks can be established. They don't all have to be fractional reserve type banking. They can just be for investments and lending banks. And they can be small, and they can be large, and they can be public, and they could be private or foundational for the public benefit. That's why I say credit creation for public benefit only, not county-created public banks or state-created public banks, because it doesn't necessarily require that. You hear me? So possibly, we don't want to stop pushing getting public monies, tax revenues, into a system that benefits the community, absolutely. But that's a hard sell sometimes. We've already noticed. In fact, I wanted to show you this picture. It's a small little picture on the Public Banking Institute. And this is the United States. It's a little fuzzy because I tried to blow it up so we could actually look at what it says. And the ones that have a state-owned bank, of course, is North Dakota. And then those that have bills to form a state-owned bank, this would be a public bank, are the blue states. The red states have another type of state bank bill, and I don't know what that difference is. I will try to find out. And then here's Colorado has an initiative to form a state-owned bank. And so you'll see all of these white states, nothing's going on. So look at where you live and see what's going on and try to connect with people that are involved in this so that we can actually share that with the public, because the Public Banking Institute is just a few people. I mean, they've been making great inroads, but they need our support. And you and I, we need, small little speeches or presentations, 3 minutes, elevator speech, a 30-second elevator blurb that we can learn. I'll write them. I'm going to write them because they're not written yet. So I'm going to focus on developing the sales presentation for public banking, and for it's not just public banking, for the creation of beneficial banking where all the benefit goes to the public, back to the community. So they could be begun with endowments. Foundations can set these up. There's self-perpetuating foundational financing structures so that interest that's paid back flows back into that foundational beneficial banking for people, for the public. And that's why I think that we'll probably, when I'm writing these and working on how would we phrase this, what works, what kind of comments snag people's interest right like that, give them the picture instantly and bring them on board for, wow, wouldn't that be great for our great transformation? Because that's what we need. We need something to snag everybody into the vision. That's how we're going to connect with the people. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and I'm going to focus on that. I believe I have some skills there, and want to share that. Now, the letters, the send letters to the representatives. I just got this like 10 minutes. I'm always getting stuff just 10 minutes before the show. So I apologize for the presentation format. It's just going to be a Word document. And of course I started editing it. And so this is a letter. This comes again from Jed Davis, and our salute to you, Jed, for being a lead dog in this fight against fraudulent foreclosures. We so thank you for all of your effort and time and focus. And he's sent this letter, and I will finish it. Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of editing, and then we're going to put it up as a Word document on the website so that everybody can just download it. You can type in your state representative, dear so-and-so, and your name, and then get these sent out to all of our representatives. And this is focused on the state level. And I'd like to just read a little bit of the letter. It's really powerful. I think it's fabulous. I think this information must get in the hands of every one of our legislators repeatedly. And if you're Kimmy and you were hearing about Kimmy, put it on pink paper. That's what she's saying. Let's make a visual impact. Let's put it on something so that when they get it, it goes, oh boy, there's another one. And that's the idea, is to create an image and an impact while we're having some fun, but fighting back and pushing back against an incredibly serious and tormenting problem that is ruining millions of people and homeowners, forcing them, ruining their economic status, stealing their down payments, stealing their future and the future of their kids. So this is how the letter reads. My name is so-and-so. I'm concerned about the integrity of our public records, the safety of land ownership, and the possibility of millions of clouded titles across the nation for generations to come. The United States has always been one of the most secure and safest countries in the world for property ownership. This security of property ownership is substantiated in the fact that the chain of title can be traced back hundreds of years to the original land grant through transparent public records. The integrity of our public records has already been compromised thousands, if not millions of times over by foreclosures in which there have been numerous legal and procedural violations. These violations nullify the notice of default and thus the sale and transfer of the title of the property. Many of these violations are criminal, which carry large fines as well as prison time, yet no one from these banks has yet been prosecuted. The massive transfer of real property through foreclosures with documents that in fact nullify the sale and thus the transfer of title poses a serious risk to the future of public records, the sale of future properties, as well as the property values of every landowner in America, even those who currently have properties with clear titles. The banks are using many improper tactics to forcefully foreclose on properties, and I love this part. These violations violate 2 California penal codes, 5 California commercial codes, 3 U.S. commercial codes, 5 judgments, an IRS bulletin, all SEC and pooling and servicing agreements, all OCC cease and desist orders, and all federal consent judgments. I think that ought to be printed in red if you're going to print this in color. This is a fabulous summary of the illegalities of these foreclosures. All of these violations either nullify the notice of default and thus any future foreclosure sale, or negate the legal interest in any property that the current trustee and servicer claim to have. This legal question of who legally has beneficial rights to the note raises unquestionably serious doubt as to whom a borrower is legally obligated to pay. In fact, millions of homeowners in good standing may be unknowingly making payments to a lender who does not have legal beneficial rights to the payments because the banks violated the pooling and servicing agreement's assignment rules from section 2.01 and chose to make impossible or illegal assignments, substitutions, attorney-in-fact designations, and or agency claims. The next page lists those violations that we've discussed under the owner's statement of suspicious documents. There you go. And it should seem very obvious that what is currently happening to our public records will have huge adverse ramifications to the well-being of our society. They already have. And then the letter goes on to offer links. So if we fill this out and you PDF it and email it, you can still send it, but if you email it to your representatives, these links will be active in that PDF. And that way they can just go click and see O'Brien's public presentation for the anti-foreclosure bill, the audit that John O'Brien, registrar of deeds over in Essex County, Massachusetts, did in 2011. His affidavit in the case against Doc X. And then they cite more links about the Supreme Court of Illinois recently enacted new rules regarding mortgage foreclosure cases. Nevada State Assembly passed AB 284, which is the affidavit of authority. So this is a letter. It's a simple letter. Thank you, Jed. I'm going to make a few more changes, some little edits, mostly grammatical, I think. And and I will both PDF that, but I will also set that up as a Word document. The reason I do that is so that if you try to download the Word document and it's too new of a version and it doesn't work in your Word, or you're using Mac or something else, you can actually just type it up from the PDF doc, because the PDF will show up, and I'm sorry, you'll have to type it in, but at least it'll be typable. Might even be copy pastable. You might be able to highlight the printing and then just paste it in your document processor and be able to get these letters sent out. So the letters, I believe, are important and relatively easy to do. So these are easy tools, difficult tools, tools we're researching, like common law grand juries, and looking at connecting with a political party that already claims to be pushing forward on these issues. And if that's really the case, then let's unite with others that think like us. Let's not be standoff and say, well, they're not interested in foreclosures. Let's go over there and tell them why they should be. These other activists, they're already fighting back for some reason. So let's go share that reason, and then they'll share our reason, and together we'll be stronger. This is the point. We have to connect with others. So here's some other officials that have already proven they're on our side. So I wanted to get this screen up so that you could see that again and connect with them, because some of these are representatives. Some of them call themselves Democrats. Some of them call themselves Republicans. Some of them say I'm independent. Some are progressive. The answer is either they have sworn allegiance to the banksters and are carrying water for them and are pushing down the people and the people's rights and securities and futures, or they are not with the banks and they are for the people, working hard to try to lift up the people, the rights, the future, the protections, and pushing back against this tremendous tyrannical cartel. So they need all the support we can give them. So try to connect with anyone on this list that you can. Now here it says local democracy now groups. I haven't even been able to update this yet with the Green Party. So add that in your head on this list, and let's try to connect. That's your homework for the weekend. We are going to connect with others that are fighting back, and we are going to build our coalition so that the people can rise up non-violently, but in a truly revolutionary format. And I do know that this will bugger the bankers. So that's me signing off for today. We're going to again encourage ourselves with an exciting song that's fun but very pointed, that we're going to bugger the bankers, the politicians, and the bureaucrats. Thanks guys, and we'll talk to you next week.
When I was a lass, I was proud of me class, like my father and mother before me. They taught me to fight for my civil rights, but it's always the same old story. The rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream, under Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you.
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're murdered from every direction.
The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax, with nary a moment's reflection. Where there's brass, there's muck, and they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent.